Welcome back to a brand new season of the A Game here on App TV. I'm your host, Grace Ellen Callahan. This season, you can expect the unexpected with coverage and analysis of sports all across the globe. In this exciting first episode back, we will be bringing you the hottest of hot topics. And I mean it, they're gonna get hot. From the NFL to the striking season of App State women's basketball. App State women's basketball is on a roll. Their season has turned around since November. With new head coach Alara Sharp and a new team, there's a lot to talk about. And I've got some people here to talk about that with you. I'm here with Will Battershell, host of Turning Laps on 90.5 WASU, and Chris Tora, reporter for Appalachian Weekly News. Guys, how has this team adjusted to the Alara Sharp era?
Man, it's been amazing. I think the key word I've seen so far is leadership. Her leadership has rubbed off on these players, and because of that, they have bought into her system, and that predominantly goes around the defense that she has. And because of that, you're seeing, App State winning games because of their defense and intensity and just them going off of Alara Sharp's energy. It's just infectious.
Alara Sharp comes from a winning program at Presbyterian, and she is used to winning and getting that team into playoff contention. And that's exactly what she's done with App State. They started slow at the beginning of the season. Like, a lot of us thought it wasn't going to end good. And then once conference play hit, it was click, click, click. And now they're just dominating almost every game they go and play. They just re-beat an ODU team that they lost to. And they just look dominant all around. We're scoring points in the paint, points at three. We're getting blocks. We're getting rebounds. It's just the team looks so complete right now.
Absolutely. And it's not just your starting lineup. It's the whole bench. This team ranks 17th in the NCAA in bench points. What has credited this success that the whole team, Chris, you add that it was a lot of Alara Sharp's mentality. What has she forced so much to just get the whole team really involved?
I think you said it's the whole team. She trusts each and every player on the bench. It's not just the starting five. It's not the starting six. It's everyone. She puts trust in all her players, and because of that, they perform really well. And because of that, the team is gelling well. The team chemistry is there. I go to games and I hear them talking on defense. I hear them calling out screens. It's ball movement on the offensive side. It's not just one or two passes and then a shot. It's 5-6 passes and then teammates cutting to the basket and getting open looks. So it's like each and every teammate on the court is just buying into each other, and they're trusting each other. And even if they mess up, I hear them clapping. I hear them get back on defense. I'm hearing, their encouragement, the high-fiving when they subbed out. That's all stuff Alara Sharp wants to bring to App State. And I think that is now visual to a lot of App State fans and to us who are reporting on this. We're seeing it as well. And as long as they keep doing that, they're going to be on a roll.
And like you said, Chris, points off the bench. Alara Sharp has really found a system to where there's about 8 or 9 good players on this team. And she literally has different play styles for different formations that she brings onto the court. She'll have the starting five, then she'll bring in a whole new fresh five. And they do the same thing the starting five did. This team is so deep, and I think that's why once conference play is clicked or hit, they've just started rolling and rolling and rolling. Because at the beginning of the year, this team didn't play together. They were a brand new team, and they didn't know how to get that teamwork together. But now, since we're late in the season, all we see is them steamrolling each other.
And I think that's perfectly normal. In the beginning of the year, no one knows each other. They have to understand personalities in and off the locker room, gelling off the court. So I think, having that struggle is normal in the beginning of the year, because when you want to play conference games, you want to hit these games hard, and you want to win these games, because this is going to set up for the Sun Belt playoffs and everything. And so I think, right now with how Alara Sharp is having that team gel, and I just see, this team going pretty far. And I think a lot of people around App State would say the same thing.
And another big thing is the communication between everybody, between the bench, between the players, between Sharp herself, communicating to the players on court. If you watch the games, you can see her standing all the way almost to the opponent's bench, yelling onto her players and telling them what they need to do and where they need to go. And it's just they just follow it, and it's just everything rotates together and just works as one giant piece.
Each team member has a specific component that they bring to this team. You guys talk about how it's all gelling together. What is a specific player that comes off the bench that brings a specific quality to this team? Who's someone that you watch on these bench points?
I mean, I don't think there's a specific player. I mean, sometimes Emily Carver sometimes comes off the bench, and I think she's a big component. I just wish she's averaging like 9.6 points this year. And I think for me, I would like to see her get a little bit more because she is a big leader on this team, and she's a big component to this team, and she's one of the key components to also being a shooter on this team. So I would like to see Emily Carver. I think her name stands out to me a lot, even though she starts and sometimes comes off the bench. Emily Carver. What about you, Will?
I'm going to go with somebody that has shown a presence in the paint since conference play, and that is Rylan Moffitt off the bench because she hasn't started for us at all. And she comes in and she is that game wrecker in the paint. We saw it against ODU. We saw it Saturday against Georgia Southern. She is just dominant. Blocks, getting rebounds, putting the ball back up for second chance points. Rylan Moffitt has completely taken over since conference play started.
What's something that y'all have seen specifically? Like we see the second chance points, but especially like the evolution of the bigs in the team, Rylan Moffitt and Elena Pericic. Huge transformations in just building this team. What's something huge that you've seen change since non-conference play?
One thing that I've seen that's big is I think it's the defensive prowess because I think Laura Sharp coming from Presbyterian wanted to hit the defense, and it's her zone defense. It's her 2-3. It's getting players, buying into her defensive 2-3 scheme, which is basically just 2 players on top, 3 players on the bottom, and forcing opponent offenses to take bad shots. And you can see it with her energy and the way that players guard opponent offenses. It's very defensive heavy, that translates into their offense. And I think that is one of the things that I see with the App State women's team, that it goes from defense to offense really well.
And talking about the defense, the reason the defense has gotten so good is the teams become so much more physical. The physicality all around from inbounds on offense and defense all the way down the court. It's just the girls are on the opponents and constantly forcing their opponents to make mistakes, getting steals, turnovers, personal fouls because they're getting so physical. But that's how Alora Sharp wants her team to be. She wants her team to get in the opponent's head so that they just throw off the game. And you see that every single game.
Yeah, one of the things that stands out to me as Laura Sharp as a coach is that she used to coach at Presbyterian, and she had an opportunity to play versus the Gamecocks in the tournament. And she had the Gamecocks head coach, Staley, come in and talk to her team before Presbyterian's first ever playoff game. And I think that's just huge as a person because Gamecocks are one of these teams now in women's basketball that's just been taking over women's basketball. And the fact that Alora Sharp got that coach in the locker room to talk to the Presbyterian players, I think it's just huge. It speaks to the volume of leadership that Alora Sharp wants to instill beyond basketball. Is creating these, having these young women go beyond basketball and take what she's trying to teach and apply it into life.
Alora Sharp is just well known around the NCAA, talking about how Dawn Staley talked with her old school just before the NCAA tournament. Well, tournament games. They're coming up. Sun Belt tournament play, something that we have not seen a lot of success from App State women's basketball. What can this team do right now? Because they're struggling in the fourth quarter. This last game, their only points really coming from free throws in the fourth quarter, just really relying off of their heavy success coming out into the third quarter. That's where we've seen the most sparks from this App State women's team. What can they do to clean up this fourth quarter, especially getting close to conference or tournament play?
I'm going to bring in something from the last game. I think they had 26 turnovers versus Georgia Southern, and I think that's way too many depending on, it doesn't matter what level you're on. 26 turnovers, when I saw that, made my eyes pop out of my head. I was like, what the world? This is a D1 program, and 26 turnovers in a game. That if you cut that down, that will give them more opportunities to get more offensive possessions and to give them more opportunities to score.
I'm right there with you. The turnovers have been the biggest thing for both App State basketball teams, but especially the women's. And since conference started, they've gotten better, but it's still not been acceptable. Like 26 turnovers, but you still win, granted, but 26 turnovers is unacceptable. And they are starting to clean it up, but there's sometimes where they slip again, and they just need to prevent that slippage.
I think they also got lucky that Georgia Southern also shot like 22%, I believe, from three that game. So they got really lucky. Not all teams are going to shoot that poorly. If you have 26 turnovers versus the higher, ranked Sun Belt teams in that conference, they're going to make you pay. and they're going to make you pay severely. So to me, one of my advices would be just cherish the ball a little bit more, cut those turnovers from like 26, and I would say no more than like 10. Like if you can get it down to 10, I think that would be way better, but 26 to me is just insane.
Well, conference play is really just heating up here in the Sun Belt. You're not going to want to miss it. So swing down to the Holmes Convocation Center when you have the chance to check out your App State women's basketball team. But don't go anywhere. We will be right back with more of the A Game right after this.
What once were rows of crops are now hallways for growing our future. The old ways that served generations before are now the perfected paths of tomorrow. These mountains have always called to the pathfinder, the trailblazer, the innovator. The faces and structures may change, but one thing remains constant: access to higher education, here and always at App State.
Welcome back to the A Game. Moving into more App State sports, it's almost that time in the high country to grab your peanuts and Cracker Jacks, because that's right, we're heading out to the ball field. It's time for App State baseball and softball. I'm here with sports reporter for the Appalachian, Dylan Shepard, to preview just what these two teams will look like this season. We'll start out with baseball. Dylan, this has been somewhat of a roster reload for the Mountaineers. Who do you see stepping up into these big cleats to fill?
Well, we had a lot of important bats leave last season. We had Banks Tolley graduate. We had C.J. Boyd graduate. Austin St. Laurent got drafted by the Mariners in the 14th round. Drew Holderbach is gone. So 4 of our main offensive weapons that led us to like a record-breaking offensive season last year are now out of the picture. So some of the guys I think that need to step up are some of the seniors, and I've got Joseph Zamora in the infield and Braxton Church behind the plate at catcher. Both of them have that experience. They played on that record-setting team last year. So I fully expect them to come bring that experience and bring that expertise of what needs to be done to have another great season for the Mountaineers. As far as like people to keep an eye on filling in those positions, I've got people who are breaking out like Jackson Steensma for pitching. He was one of our main guys last year because Trey Tuich was gone. He was the Tuesday starter most of the time, so Steensma needs to step up on the mound. Cam Miller, one of our first basemen, I expect him to have another breakout season. He's got pretty much everything you want out of a first baseman. He's got that raw power at the plate. He hit 5 home runs last season, and all of them were towering shots. He had the great range at first base. He was an excellent fielder, and he's also just got the character. He's got the grit, the determination, all the things you want out of an App State Mountaineer, essentially in any single sport, but especially baseball. So I expect him to have a breakout season and kind of step up into a leadership role on the offensive side.
Leadership positions definitely going to be a huge role to fill. And then these new guys really just kind of following in these footsteps because, man, they've got some big cleats to fill, as we would say here on the A Game. Because Kermit Smith just did something that App State hasn't done in the past 10 years. Back-to-back 30-win seasons. Dylan, what is Kermit, what's going through Kermit Smith's mind right now as he's prepping for this season? He's recruited over the offseason. How excited is he to maybe get back out there?
Well, Kermit Smith is a bona fide winner. He's gotten this team to the Sun Belt semifinals after up and down regular season. He got them to the Sun Belt semifinals in what I would call a ridiculous run last year. You got lost early in the tournament, so you have to go through the losers bracket. You rack off several wins in a row to get to that Sun Belt semifinal. It was an incredible run. So Smith has that experience. He's been getting this team better and better every single year. Last year, he had the team in like the mid-70s for RPI, which is one of like the top metrics for ranking teams in the country. That was the highest App State has been in pretty much a long time. So he knows how to get the job done. And as you mentioned, with those recruits coming in, he keeps getting better and better recruiting classes. He's got a lot of people coming in. He's got Tyler Lichtenberger and Riley Luft. They played against each other in high school, and so they'll have experience on the field with chemistry in that sense. You got a lot of new pitchers coming in. You got 3 of them that are like throwing mid-80s to mid-90s, so you've got the velocity there on the mound. And you've got Juan Correa as well out of the transfer portal. He's a senior first baseman. He'll bring that experience, and he'll bring that raw power as well. He's also really good at getting on base. So a lot of good additions on the offensive side, and Kermit Smith is just a really good person to like get his team motivated, get his teams to buy in to what he's trying to get. And you'll see him in the dugout talking to his guys all the time. You'll see him sticking up for his guys if there's a bad call from an umpire. So he's just got that personality, that character that you want out of any coach on a baseball team. And Kermit Smith is that guy.
You would say he's definitely giving his all to Appalachian
Yes.
State.
Yes, I would.
100%. I think something I want to touch on, though, with all of these new guys, what's something better that they can do from last year? They had an early exit in the tournament and ended up in the losers bracket. That's something that, as a coach, like, it is an honor still to be there, especially as a smaller group of 5 school. However, you do want to be in that larger tournament. What's something they can do better, Dylan?
Well, I think the thing that they need to work on most is the pitching. They were 13th out of 14 in team ERA last year in the Sun Belt, which is absolutely not going to cut it. Now, I will say that because we're at a higher elevation, pitching tends to be worse because you have breaking balls. They don't break as much because of the higher elevation. There's less air resistance. But that's a lot of science stuff there. But pretty much, like, at higher elevations, pitching tends to be worse. So if we can get the pitching staff to improve, even just marginally to be like mid-pack, I think this team can go really far because our offense last year was record-setting. That was one of the most incredible offenses I've ever seen on a college baseball field. So if we can have a replication of that offense and that pitching staff improve, I think that this team can make another long run in the Sun Belt tournament. Perhaps maybe snag an at-large bid in the College World Series tournament there in the regionals. So it's not a long shot, but again, that pitching staff has to improve in order for that to happen.
And I mean, you mention it. It's a big difference up here in the high country, especially with weather. Starting out the season in February, it's a very different season when you're playing in April up here compared to when you're playing in February. And I think that is a huge component to where when you look at this team's schedule, they come and they'll play Queens here in February. However, we won't really see the baseball team up and really until March consistently in conference games. And I think that's going to be something that when you say just how big essentially the home field advantage is when really with any App State sport, we really pride ourselves on that. And I think definitely trying to just seeing like how these essentially away games are going to affect this App State baseball team schedule. However, this is something they haven't seen before. However, rounding the corner to softball, there's no field in the area. There have been a lot of changes to this squad, including a new head coach and brand new facilities, which you could say may be long overdue. Dylan, what are your thoughts for these updates and just the overall hype that we see right now with this new softball team?
Yeah, I'll talk about new head coach first. Name is Whitney Jones, and she has everything you want out of a new head coach. I've talked with her once or twice. She is absolutely incredible. She's got buy-in of all her players already. She's said that she has the right people on the team, on the coaching staff, and that is what you want to hear right out of the gate from a first-year head coach. If they are saying that they got all the right pieces in place in your first year, you can go a very long way with that amount of confidence out of a head coach. So she also has experience playing and coaching in the College World Series before, so having that experience in those big game situations will be critical for this App State softball team that didn't do so hot last year in the Sun Belt. They went 4-20 in the Sun Belt Conference play. That's absolutely not going to cut it for this D1 program that should have lofty expectations going forward in the coming years. As for the new stadium, yeah, it's off of the Appalachian 105 lot. It looks absolutely incredible. Now,
have you seen that mountain view?
I mean, look,
like,
that field looks great. Like
that mountain view looks pretty nice.
I
Like
know.
I'm hyped for those
I'm
Instagram
excited
photos.
for it.
Not gonna lie.
It's got all new facilities. They've got completely AstroTurf field. They've got new hitting facilities, a digital scoreboard there. It's going to be an incredible fan experience once we got home games coming to the new stadium. I think the first home game's in like mid-March, so it will be a while because they're still putting the finishing touches on that. But once that stadium is completed, y'all better pack that out because it's going to be an experience to watch. Like, I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Softball is in a very similar situation, however, to baseball, considering the fact that a lot of their games, they don't have a lot of home games. They're going to be on the road a lot. What's new Coach Whitney doing to really kind of adapt for this such away schedule? Like, we're barely going to see them on their new field at all, even with all of these new touches.
Yeah, and I think that's mostly because of the new stadium finishing construction there. So you'll have to have a lot of the invitational games, and a lot of those early conference games will be played on the road away from App State fans. However, I think the main thing that needs to happen in order to get comfortable in that situation will be for fans to show up at those games, because this team has a lot of confidence. This team can go far if App State fans back them, and there's a lot of talent coming in onto this team, especially talent that's even already there. You've got a pretty intact infield coming in from last year, including the catcher position. You've got outfielders coming back. The new pitching staff that they're having pretty much overhauled. They've got one returning starter, one returning reliever, and you've got a lot of talent coming in through freshman acquisitions, through the transfer portal. It's going to be an exciting time to watch App State softball, no doubt. So if all those new pieces can come together and gel and build chemistry like I've been talking about throughout, I think it's going to be a great experience, especially at the new stadium.
So you heard it here first from Dylan. Go check out App State women's softball, because they won't be around in the high country for too long with so many away games in their schedule. However, it's next. It's the big game, the game we've all been waiting for all year. It's the Super Bowl, and we'll have more analysis for you when we come back. The game is set. The Philadelphia Eagles are facing off for a part 2 against the back-to-back champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm here with J.D. Rogers, reporter for Appalachian Weekly News, and Isaac Edwards, sports reporter for the Appalachian. The road was not short to get here. Tell us a little bit about how both of these teams got here.
Yeah, so for the Eagles, they started off the season a bit rocky, and they lost 2 of their first 4 games, and then they went on a 10-game win streak. A.J. Brown got hurt during that time. He came back. Since he came back, they went on that 10-game win streak. And their defense was doing pretty bad at the beginning of the season. Not for long after that. The rookie cornerbacks, Quintanamo Bay, as his nickname says, and Cooper DeJean have been holding down the fort in that secondary for the Eagles. And, man, they finished the season 14-3 and ready to roll in the playoffs. They went against the Rams, 28-22 victory, and then they beat the Commanders in the NFC Championships to get to the legendary game of the Super Bowl, and they waxed the Commanders, who was their last loss of the regular season.
Yeah. So for the Chiefs, they were in cruise control basically the whole entire season until they got to the AFC Championship game against the Bills, because they had to play their first game of the playoffs was against the Texans, who C.J. Stroud did have that sophomore slump. So, and then against the Bills, very competitive game, but the Chiefs are just they're the Bills' nemesis. The Bills cannot get past the Chiefs. So I think the Chiefs had a very, very easy road to get to this Super Bowl.
For sure. And I think something to bring out here, the Chiefs unstoppable in the postseason.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody can beat them right now except for Joe Burrow.
Yes.
However, what do the Eagles have to do to overcome this feat? Because the Chiefs have they figured out the hack, essentially, in the playoffs. They get that first round bye. They get the home field advantage. And by the time you get to the Super Bowl, they have too much momentum that you can't even stop them.
I think it's just play good defense. That's all you got to do. They got the stars on defense. They got Cooper DeJean. They got those 2 rookies. They got Reed Blankenship for the linebacker. And, in my opinion, the defensive player of the year, and Zach Braun. So they just got to stop them on offense. I think the Eagles will be fine on offense. Saquon's going to run through this Chiefs defense.
I mean, you say that, but Chiefs defense was top 5 in defense throughout the whole year, and I think it is Saquon.
Yeah,
to be
dude,
fair,
it's Saquon, bro.
He's going to go for over 100 yards, maybe 2 tutties. You never know.
No, I'm calling 132 tutties. That's.
I mean, he very likely will. But you've got to. All the Chiefs have to do on defense is maintain them. Make Jalen Hurts throw those hard passes. Make A.J. Brown go against McDuffie. Make those good catches as he can do. I think the Chiefs' defense matches up well with that star-studded Eagles offense.
You say A.J. Brown, but guess what? They got Devontae Smith on the other side.
I know.
They got that tag team tangent, dude. If they're stopping A.J. Brown, they're not going to have anybody to cover Devontae Smith or vice versa.
And it's not that they're going to stop the Eagles' offense as a whole. It's all about slowing them down. And you said that the Eagles could stop the Chiefs' offense, which is just not going to happen. Mahomes in the playoffs, we've seen it time and time again. He just became the second all-time playoff win leader in his, I think, 7th season starting. And he is not going to be stopped. That Mahomes magic is going to happen regardless of whoever he's playing, whatever games he's in, and especially in the playoffs. And he's got a couple receivers that have just come back. Marquise Brown has just come back. He's speedy and allowing Xavier Worthy to really get into that slot position, and they can do some fun things with him now, as we've seen in the past couple games from Andy Reid. I really think that the Eagles' defense is going to have a tough time.
Dude,
regardless.
I think they just need to stop Xavier Worthy. I don't think – because Juju did have a very big game in the AFC Championship game. I'll give him that.
Which is very interesting.
Yes.
To say the least.
Yes, but I don't think he's going to show out. And, dude, Mahomes' luck needs to run out. It has to. I can't take it anymore.
I've got one thing for both of y'all, though, right there. What happens with this Chiefs offensive line? Because you can take out Xavier Worthy, you can take out Marquise Brown, all of these components, but for some reason, just like you just said, Isaac, Mahomes gets out of the pocket and he makes some crazy thing happen, and then that's when we start running into all this controversial stuff that happens with the Chiefs.
Dude.
What are the Eagles defense doing? Going on that young secondary. How is a young secondary competing against, even though Mahomes has only been around for like 8 years at this point, it feels like he's been around forever. What's a young secondary going to do about that?
I think when they get to the quarterback, which I think they can do, they have to hit him. They got to get a couple sacks, man. They got to set the tone. Tell them they're not going to just just let them run out of bounds. Just you got to set the tone.
I agree with you there. I think that if you want to rattle Mahomes, which he doesn't get rattled very easily, you do need to hit him, and you might get a couple flags for it, as the refs tend to like to throw pass interference, or not pass interference, roughing the passer flags.
They do like to throw
on
that
Mahomes.
too, dude.
They like to throw a lot of flags, but if the Eagles do want a chance, they are going to have to bring that pass rush and have to contain Mahomes' scramble ability and kind of take that or limit that portion of the game for them. I think the secondary, I know they're both rookies, both their corners are. I'm not honestly too worried about them. We saw them contain Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua 2 weeks ago, and their defense did a great job last week kind of limiting the big plays against the Commanders. Really, they had to really lock in. The Commanders had to lock in to get 5 yards on every play. That was for us. That was that was the Eagles defense on the Commanders. But I think they have a good chance to limit their plays.
The Eagles defense, you just got to get Zach Braun going. Get him through the offensive line. Get him near Mahomes so he can know he can get through the Chiefs offense.
And what a season that Zach Braun has had.
I'm telling you, Defensive Player of the Year, man.
He is a very pop-up out of nowhere player. I saw him getting, which is crazy, I saw him getting compared to Luke Kuechly in his Defensive Player of the Year award. But I think that he's a big key. He got a fumble recovery and punched the ball out last week too against the Commanders.
And just to wrap this up real quick, it's not just Patrick Mahomes. We've got the biggest trade, some would say, that happened this offseason, just moving over in the division. Saquon Barkley coming to the Eagles, which seems at this point that he is pushing as hard as he can
He
to
put
get
the
these
team on his
Eagles
back.
to
He
the
backpacked
end. That's what he's trying to do right
Yes.
now. How is this Chiefs defense that's so esteemed going to do it? Because honestly, Saquon's run through some pretty tough defenses already this year. You just leave one safety back there and you just drop it in and he's gone.
Some may say he's tush pushing his way to a Super Bowl MVP. But I mean, that's obviously the key for the Eagles is to get Saquon going, keep him going throughout the whole game. And there's very big capability that he will do that because he's done it against every team this year. He broke 2,000 yards in the regular season, and that is an insane feat to accomplish. I think that the Chiefs defense, you can only slow down Saquon for so long, and we saw him break a 60-yarder against the Commanders on their first offensive play. So as long as they don't do that, I'd say they're heading in the right direction.
I think one thing, too, is the tush push. Like, it's a funny name, but even without Jason Kelsey, when it's 4th and 1 or 3rd and goal and you need that 1 yard gain, they're automatically going to get it. I don't think the Chiefs can stop that.
Well, y'all heard it here first. Is it going to be Saquon and the Eagles or Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs? It's going to be a good one, that's for sure. As always, thank you for joining us on the A-Game. We'll see you again soon. And make sure to follow us on Instagram at the A-Game Sports to stay up to date in all things sports.